The hardest part for me about being a parent has been thinking that my background gave me some type of blueprint to have more of the answers. Like, I don't think that I have all of the answers, but I definitely feel like being in education gave me an upper hand, right? I was like, oh, I'll already have the patience, or I'll already have, you know, the skills that it takes to kind of break down a situation, or the social emotional learning down pat, right? But I think that nothing in this world, no matter what you do, is going to prepare you for being a parent other than being a parent. And so for me, it's always a very humbling experience when I'm like, I don't know what to do. But I think it's normal, right? And I think that for our communities for so long, we haven't had a village, right? So growing up, I tell people all the time that my mom and dad, I do come from a two-parent household, but my mom and dad still very much have full-time jobs and bills and like all of the, same concerns as everybody else. However, I do remember specifically like having my grandmother who completely did not work and was like at home 24/7 as our first like resource if it came down to childcare, if it came down to like putting us on and off the bus. So I have one sister. So when it came down to putting us on and off the bus, when it came down to childcare, after school, before school, after school, all of that type of stuff, I was really at my grandmother's house. I also remember having an aunt who like stayed around the corner from us, who at some point, if my grandmother wasn't able to do it or if they just weren't trying to burden her with that task, my aunt was able to do so. I had an uncle who literally lived like two doors down from us who would, if I couldn't get in the house or if anything went wrong, like I could just walk down to his house and be okay. So when I think about the kids in this day and age, that's really not the case for them. And, I'll speak to my own family dynamic. Like, me and my husband moved 4 hours away from all of the family that we know. And so, if there is no aunt two doors down, there is no trusted grandmother around the corner, there is no aunt, there's just us. And so when we do things like that, while, they might be for our financial benefit or whatever, we really strip ourselves of the village that we're supposed to have. In addition to that, I think that because the economy has changed, right? We don't have grandparents, or speaking for my mom and dad, my husband's mom and dad, like, they're not at home retired like taking care of the kids. Like, that's not the reality. Like, rent on average is $2,000 a month. Like, nobody has the capacity, even retired um, individuals, they don't have the capacity to just be a grandpa or be a grandma to their grandkids. Like, they still are working pretty much full-time jobs unless you have crazy generational wealth in your family. And so what that means is the black family dynamic, the village that is needed to raise a child, is kind of being broken down, right? Like, your aunts and uncles don't have the capacity, your grandparents don't have the capacity. I mean, I remember, those photos that they show where you're like sleeping on the floor with all of your cousins in your grandma's house. Like, my kids, unfortunately, while not far removed from that, they won't have that experience. I know for a fact that my kids have cousins that they have never met a day in their life. So it's like, where is this village that it takes to really have a successful family dynamic? And not just that. When I think about, we had a lot of, in my day, wow, am I really saying in my day? Whatever. In my day, we had a lot of adults who just simply shared the same values and morals as my parents. So when I think about it, I'm like, hey, even if I decided to rebel against my parents and I listened to what they were saying, I had the first ring of my village was the next ring of my village was my family, and they were pretty much echoing everything that my parents said. And then outside of that, outside of my immediate family, I went to church. So I had my church family who, was kind of that next rank of support that were, again, saying the same things that my parents were saying. And when I think about that, I'll be very transparent in saying, like, I go to Bedside Baptist, and my church is exclusively on YouTube. And so my kids don't even get to experience like having a church home or children's church or Sunday school and those Wednesday night Bible studies that really keep you grounded. They give you those social experiences, right? My kids don't have that, and I think it's safe to assume that a lot of kids don't have that anymore. Um, and then the next ring for me was, my school system and the people at the school that really cared. I won't say, I would be remiss to say that everybody at um, schools care about kids and their success. But I will say, kids have a very strong sense of discernment. And so for me, I was always very much drawn to the people that did care. And so with that, the individuals that I noticed really cared about us, they had the same morals and values as my parents, and they were as equally invested in our success and making sure, like, even if they weren't my teacher, they were like, how those grades doing? And if they ever saw me in trouble, they were like, what's going on? Like those type of people existed during the time where I was in school. And then I was involved. Like, I played basketball. My basketball coach was not playing like what your grades looking like. Outside of my basketball coach, I did drama club. My drama club teacher was not playing. Outside of drama club, I did talent search. Talent search, they would kick you out if your grades were bad. So, when I think about those extracurricular activities nowadays at schools, like, those things cost. You got to provide your own transportation, and by the time you put all those stipulations on already stressed parents who are trying to just get by, you kind of eliminate that ring of support for most families as well. So when I think about all of the different layers of support, and I'm sure they go like deeper than that, like into the community and stuff like that. But if I just think about those simple things and how my kids don't even have that, right? I think that the family dynamic is hurting because we're lacking a village.